Hello and welcome to Makeup for Headshots. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a natural makeup for your upcoming job interview or online meeting. I'm your makeup artist Lauren and I'm excited to share this with you. So step one of our makeup today is our primer. Now the primer that I have chosen to use for our interview makeup or our headshot makeup is the Optical Illusion Primer by Urban Decay. So I'm pumping just a pea-sized amount into my finger and I'm going to rub that together and then pop that through the T-zone. I'm doing this through the T-zone in particular because I know this is my problem area. This is where I tend to get shine later in the day. So I'm going to really work that into the skin and push the product in. And as you can see, as it's starting to adhere, it's already taking that shine straight out of my skin and smoothing those areas. And you should be left with a really satin finish on the skin, perfectly prepped and ready for your foundation. So the first thing I'm going to do is give it a little spritz with the MAC Prep and Prime Fix Plus, and this is just going to give my skin a nice little burst of moisturizer ready before we start our makeup. Now moving straight into our foundation. The foundation that I've chosen to use for today's video is the Stay Naked Foundation by Urban Decay. Now this is a liquid foundation, it is a long wear, it has up to 24 hours wear. So I am right in between shades at the moment. I'm a 41N and in between with a 40NN. So what I'm going to do is pop one pump of those together onto my little mixing tray and then I'm going to apply that with my foundation. So you can see one pump here of each color. I'm going to mix those and apply that straight onto my skin. I like to do little dots on the face first and then really come through and start pushing that onto the skin. You can use little circular motions to do this. You can use sweeping motions, but I think one of the most important things that you can be doing as you're coming to the end of pushing your foundation onto the skin is to start this stippling action as I'm doing here. Don't forget to drag it down the neck. You want everything to blend together. And just start stippling that product right at the end there to eliminate any little brush strokes that you might have left on the skin. I'm going to take a tiny bit more straight over my lids, and this is going to provide a really nice base for our eyeshadows later on. That's looking great. Something else that you might want to consider as well for your headshot photographs is to take what's left over on your foundation brush and just drag that down through the décolletage slightly and on the neck, just to blend all of that seamlessly in together. Now to start with our concealer. For this step, I'm going to be using two different products, and the first one is this little NARS pot here. This is in the shade Light 3 Honey. I'm just going to show you very quickly the color of this one. You can see it's quite a dark pink undertone, and the reason that I am using that color is to help correct these little dark areas that I have under the eye and also slightly around the nose. Just onto my fluffy concealer brush and just dot that on those darker areas and then start softly blending that out and away. How this is starting to correct that area. If you can see the difference between those eyes, much better. I really think that this is an important step in your makeup. Using this pinky toned concealer, I don't think there's a lot of us out there that are getting enough sleep or as much sleep as we need. So this is a great little tip to help correct that dark under the eyes before you move into a brightening concealer. Now once we have finished that, I'm going to move in and now start using a brightening concealer. I'm going to today use the Too Faced concealer. This is the multi-sculpting concealer and it's just in the shade Almond. This one I'm going to pop a few little dots on the areas that I want to bring forward. So as you can see, I've run it slightly under the eyes, through the center of my forehead, down the nose and on the chin. And to blend that one out, I'm taking a damp beauty blender. And this is going to really help to shear that product out and make it look really flawless. Again, using a little stippling sort of motion, you can also take this concealer over the eyelid, and that will provide that beautiful base for the eyeshadows that we were talking about later on. Something else to consider when you're purchasing a concealer is to make sure that you're going around 2 to 3 shades lighter than your actual skin tone. There we go, we're nearly done. I'm just going to take that under those little areas that are a problem for me. And that is a nice flat base makeup completed. Who's ready to get some color back onto our face? I am. So let's start with our bronzer. The bronzer that I'm going to use today is this little one here by Mecca. Now, as you can see, it's actually not that much darker than my natural skin tone. And what that's going to do is allow us to build color on our face gradually. So using my nice fluffy bronzing brush, I'm going to pop that in and then work that product out towards the top of my ear, through the temple area. As you can see, it's just starting to add a nice amount of color to my face. Sweep it along the jawline. Darkening these areas are the areas that we want to recede into the background. So it's important that we take that through those areas that you don't want so much to focus on. Moving on to my second bronzing product now. This is a slightly darker shade, and this is your Refined Golden Powder by MAC. Now this one does have a slight shimmer through it, but I'm going to use this one much more sparingly and just to create a little bit more depth. So again, in the same sort of area, but as you can see, it's a little bit more of a condensed motion. Down the sides of the nose is just creating a really soft contoured look. And again, through the tops of the hairline. You may also want to take that down along the neck too, because this is an area that is notoriously white, that doesn't see a lot of the sun. So that will just help bring all of that makeup together and blend everything in seamlessly. That's our bronzer done, so we can move on to our blush. Now, the last step for bringing some color back into our face is adding just a hint of highlighter. So the highlight I'm going to use is this one. It is the Enlighten Powder by Mecca. It's a beautiful rose-toned highlighter. Something to think about when you're choosing a highlight, if you want to put this on your face, is that you want to get something that's super natural. So I'm taking that on this little fan brush here, and I'm going to very gently sweep that across the top of my cheekbone. You could also use your powder brush to do this, or even the tips of your finger. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I'm going to also pop that on the Cupid's bow. And again, in photos, that's just going to pull that area forward and ever so slightly down the bridge of my nose. Notice when I did my nose that I did not add any extra product, and that's important because you don't want your nose to look like an oil slick. You just want to add the tiniest hint of color there. So you should be feeling much nicer now. You've got your color back in on your face, and we're just about ready to move into eyes. It's time to fill in our brows so that we can frame our eyes. The product that I'm going to use today is a really beautiful pencil by Hourglass. This one, for me, I use the shade Warm Blonde. Now, when you're doing your brows, I think an important tip to remember is to try and choose a shade that is about half to 1 shade lighter than your brow. And the reason that you do this is that you're wanting to create a shadow behind your natural color. By choosing a shade that is exactly the same tone, you can tend to overdo it, make your brows look quite dark, and we don't want them to be the focus. If anything, you want your eyes to be the focus of this makeup look and the brows just to complement them. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my little spoolie end, I'm going to brush my brow hair up, and that way it's going to open up this area underneath the brow, and that's where I'm going to start putting my product. Using my little tapered angled end, I can start using very soft brush strokes to start applying that product. As you can see, it's a very soft motion that I'm using. If I was to go in and draw a great huge line, it would look super unnatural. So by doing it this way, we can start slow as well. And we can build the product to a depth that we like. So as you can see, just from doing those couple of little strokes under the brow, I've given myself a much more defined but still natural line. This is how my brow should look all the time. So we're going to do the front section. I've spun that little pencil around and have pressed it on the angle the same way that my hair is growing. And I think that's a good little thing to remember. And that way you can see it's given the effect of having those extra brows where I don't. So that's nearly there. I'm going to add a little bit more just on the top here to finish out that tail. And that's nearly done. With your brows, you want to be sort of coming in, doing a few little things, coming back, having a good look in the mirror, and then coming back in and adding where you need that extra product. Lovely. So I'm going to finish off the other brow and I'll be right back. I'm back, my brows are on, and I'm just going to finish those off now with a little bit of brow powder. This is a very taupey sort of mushroomy tone. I like to do this just to help set that product. So I'm just using a really stiff angled brush to do this and just very sparingly brushing that through my brow. As you can see, I'm just brushing it upwards slightly too. Something to remember too when you're doing your brows is the way that I was taught is that if I show you with my little brush here, the start of your brow should be lining up with the outside edge of your nose or with the corner of your eye and should essentially be finishing the tail 45 degrees off the eye, and then the arch or the highest point should be a diagonal line straight from your eye, the center of your eye, up to the top of your brow. So that can help you if you're not sure of how to create a really nice shape. That can give you a little bit of an idea. Eye makeup can be so much fun, and I personally love how it can transform your entire look. So the palette that I'm going to be using today is this little one by Too Faced. It's the Semi-Sweet Chocolate, and I'm just going to show you the types of colors, if I can bring this up to the camera here, that are in this palette. Now you've got a really great range in here of quite earthy toned browns. You've also got some cool toned browns and a few shimmers. So using a nice fluffy blending brush, this is going to go all over that socket area. Sweeping it back and forth and in little circular motions to make sure that there are no harsh edges. So as you can see, that's given the eye just a little hint of definition. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Back and forth through that socket line. Just starting to open out the eye and sweeping that along that lower lash line again to pull it all together. So as you can see, when I'm doing this as well, I'm not taking it all the way up to my brow, but I am taking it slightly above that socket line, because what I want to do with this particular shadow is to open my eye out, and I think that that is what that has done there. These ones here, these two by Eco Tools, it's 4 brushes in one, and it's a great way to create a beautiful eye look. On the first brush, you've got a really dense dome brush end, and you've got a tapered blending brush end. And on the second brush, you've got a fluffier domed end and an angled brush end. These are all the brushes that you would need to create a beautiful eye look. I'm going to grab a slightly darker shade now, and I'm going to pop this in a little V formation on the outer corner of my eye and start to blend that through my socket line. This color here is going to be our definition color. So you don't want it to be super dark. I've chosen quite a cool tone here, and definitely in a matte shade. As you can see, I've not dipped my brush back into the palette. I'm just working with what product is on there to blend it out and start to create a bit of depth to the eye. Lovely. I'm going to pick up my my blending brush again and just smooth any little edges that you see. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And the same as when we were doing our brows, take a step back from the mirror, assess where you're popping that color, and then come back in to keep blending away. I think that's just such an important little tip, because you can, once you're very close to the mirror and take a step back, you can sometimes think, whoa, I definitely have gone a little bit too far there. And that's not what we want to be happening with our makeup for these particular types of roles or photos. That's looking nice. I'm just going to blend that away again. And I'm going to move on and grab that slightly denser domed brush, and I'm going to use a slightly darker shade again to just add that final bit of dimension on the outer corners of our eyes. This shadow here, you can see that I'm keeping it quite low on the lash line. I don't want to take this one too far up because it is a darker shade and it is only supposed to enhance that outer corner of the eye. The same again on the other side, pressing it in on the lash line. And the beauty about this little domed brush and its density is that it's not going to flick the product all over our eye. Where I press it, that's where the product is going to stay. You could also use a little cotton tip for this sort of application as well. That would do exactly the same thing if you don't have a huge range of brushes at home. I'm also going to grab a tiny bit more product and I'm going to sweep this very, very softly into my lower lashes. And that's going to now pull that entire look together. You can see the difference that that's made on each eye. Honestly, probably my favorite part of the makeup look is doing this little step right here and seeing how it can really start to pull all of the eye makeup together. I've turned to the tapered blending brush to smear that section away. And I'm just going back over and softening all of those shadows on the top lid again. Little circular motions. And I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to come back and show you a tip on how to do a very natural eyeliner. I'm going to show you my favorite little trick here to do an eyeliner. If you don't have the steadiest hand, you don't have to use a liquid liner pen or even a gel linered pot. You can use your angled brush and a nice dark eyeshadow. This black one up here will be fine, or even a dark brown, and you can grab that a little bit on the brush, make sure that you tap that off, and then you can press that directly onto your lash line. The key with this is to press, not to do a lot of dragging because you don't want the product to be falling out. So by using little presses along that lash line, I'm adding a tiny bit of definition, as you can see, just a hint, and it's going to complete our eye look for today. With this, just take it from the outer edge to 3/4 or halfway along the eye. Don't take it the whole way along. That's all that I'm going to do there. You could flick it out ever so slightly. And I'm also going to take it just the tiniest hint. As you can see, I've not grabbed any extra product on my brush, just along the lower lash line. So for me, that's given my eye the perfect amount of definition without using a heavy liquid liner. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the other side. The same thing, just pressing it lightly onto the lash line. And very, very softly onto the lower lash line. And that's your eye look just about complete. Let's move straight into our mascara. Let's finish our eyes with 2 coats of mascara, 2 on the top, one on the bottom and one on the very ends of the lashes once they're just about dried to give the tiniest bit more length. The mascara I'm using for today is one of my favorites. It is the Stila Huge Mascara, and it is a beautiful black dark mascara, which is exactly what I want, something that gives you a little bit of length, plenty of volume. So I'm going to go and pop that on and we'll be right back. Let's finish our makeup look with some lips. Now, with lipstick for online meetings or job interviews, or even for updated headshots for your LinkedIn profiles, you want to make sure that they're not your feature. So by that, you don't want to be using a lipstick that is super bright or super bold. You want it to be, I would say, a very close color to your natural lip shade. So for that today, because we've used quite earthy tones through our makeups, I'm going to give my lips just a tinge of a mauvey pink tone. I'm going to go right in and line them very lightly. When I'm lining my lips, I like to use the pencil slightly on the side, as you can see. And what that is doing is then not creating a really harsh and defined lip edge. It's more of a soft shadowed effect. And what I'm going to do now is just rub the edges of that to blur that line in. So as you can see here, that's given my lips a nice defined look, but it's not a really harsh tone and it doesn't make them jump forward. I'm going to finish off with a little NARS lipstick. This one is in the shade Holiday, which is, again, it's that very soft mauvey pink with a hint of nude as well. And I like to do the same thing here and just press that product into my lip. And what this also helps to do is really mold and blend that lip liner and lipstick together. And that's your makeup look complete. I hope that you've had fun. I certainly have. And I really hope that you've gained some insight and some new tips. And good luck with everything.